Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Going to do a really quick raw review of this new Death Grips EP mix, the Crouching Tiger Hidden Gabber Megamix, aka Steroids. Excuse me, I'm disgusting. Death Grips, if you didn't know, is an experimental hip-hop trio hailing from California. And last night, out of the blue, they dropped this mix. Sort of seems to be this ongoing trend for artists to release mixes, playlists, instead of albums or EPs. Totally fine, whatever. It's not like it's anything altogether new. Lots of artists have been doing it on the Bandcamp and SoundCloud platforms for years. It just seems to sort of be bubbling up into the mainstream right now, but I digress. This new collection of tracks, even though it is labeled as a mix, and maybe in some spirit it is, it's actually a pretty concise set of tracks that lasts about 20 minutes. I would say there are about 7 songs on this thing that last from the start to 3 minutes and 25 seconds. That is the track My Whole Life, I would call it. Then from 3:25 to 7:20, that to me, I would title that track Squeaky, because there's a really strange squeaky sound and noise in the instrumental that sort of stuck out to me as being kind of unique. Then there is the track I guess I would call Bald Head Girl, considering that that's kind of a significant part of the refrain in the song that lasts several more minutes, like 7:20 to 11:41, I would say. Then there is a track that, to me, probably is the clearest of the band going in a direction of like a straight hip-hop song. That, considering the hi-hats on the track, is a little trap influenced. It's a little trap influenced, okay? Ride's verse on that track is pretty sick as well. That one goes from 11:41 to 4:11. Then the 5th track, I would say, goes from 4:11 to 16:16 or so. I call that one All Out Impact, considering that's one of the first lyrics that hits and sort of struck me. And that track is different than any other because it doesn't go in a hip-hop direction, and it's not like a couple others on here where the title of this thing, the Crouching Tiger Hidden Gabber Megamix, it's not just some cheeky thing. It's not just the band, taking the piss out of hardcore underground styles of electronic music. They actually do blatantly reference on a couple tracks here, especially that 3rd track that I mentioned, especially the sixth track on this thing, what I feel is the 6th track. Gabber, very speedy, very intense, very dense styles of electronic music that emphasize very high BPMs. There are a few moments on this EP where they do blatantly reference that stuff, and they do, really kind of work that sound into their repertoire effectively. But this 5th track, is a song that felt like they were making like some punked out psychedelic rock or something. To me, felt like very much a Zach Hill track, a track that would have been on like a Zach Hill project from before, this whole Death Grips thing, whether it be on a like a side project or like a one-off collaboration or something like that. Then there is the 6th track, like I said, which does seem to pull a little bit more influence from Gabber as far as like some of the speed with the percussion and the synthesizers, just how busy and dense and dizzying some of these are. I would call this track like the Black Body track because that's kind of a very prominent refrain on the song. And there were some elements of the percussion on this track that also kind of struck me as being very No Love Deep Web-ish. And that's another thing about this project. It seems like they're throwing it back a little bit, at least a little bit in terms of the production quality. It is kind of lo-fi. It is kind of like grimy and messy like Death Grips' older stuff used to be. Their more recent releases, in my opinion, especially Bottomless Pit, have been super like HD, super clear, very clean, very well put together, very muscular and tight. This to me is a little bit more chaotic, but in a good way. Obviously the intensity, the performances are still there, and there's still an incredible amount of detail to what the band is doing on this thing, even though it is a little lo-fi. Nothing in terms of what you'd want to hear, nothing in terms of like just how intricate some of these productions are, some of these tracks are, gets lost in that muddiness. And then finally, the last track would, in my opinion, last from 1854 to the very end at 22:31. That would be the track that I guess I would call Glitch Futura, because it is very electronic, it is very synthetic, it does very much feel like it's got a bit of a sci-fi tinge to the sound of the synths at points, but it is very glitchy and aggressive and sort of abrasive at points as well. And those to me would be the 7 tracks on the EP. Ride's lyrics, I do like what I hear. Some of it does get swallowed up in the production. I guess I will say that. I will sort of walk back my comment earlier, though it wouldn't be, again, the first time that it's been sort of difficult to hear and make out everything that Ride is saying on a Death Grips album, either because of his performance or the sound quality. It's just sort of something I guess I'm used to a little bit on this new one, even though in recent releases it's been much clearer because of, again, that improvement in production quality. But still, I digress. It doesn't take away from the EP or the Megamix or whatever you want to call it, in my opinion. This thing is still really raw, it's animalistic, and what makes it exciting is that I think it's really opening up new avenues for the band in terms of, musical style and sound. It's really amazing that they're able to kind of keep the original flame and fire and excitement of the trio alive while still continuing to try new things and experiment, which is really something that I wanted at this point in the group's career, because while I did like Bottomless Pit a lot, it did feel like a lot of aspects of that record were kind of Death Grips slightly improving on things that they had already done on all of their past records. To me, even though it is a little raw, it is a little rough around the edges, a lot of what they're doing on this new Megamix seems like just altogether new, just them really pushing forward and working out, some new ideas and diving into, again, different musical styles and successfully working them into their sound too. I really like what they're doing here. Certainly blows away, in my opinion, like the Fashion Week instrumentals, the Interview 2016 EP. Definitely like tons of potential, tons of raw energy in this thing, and at least a couple of my favorite Death Grips tracks that I've heard in a while. To sort of reference back to the numbers that I've put up over here. The tracks here that stuck out to me as being the most Gabber influence definitely hit me as being some of my favorites. The 4th track on here, sort of the trap influence track, hit me as being one of my favorites as well. My Whole Life, I thought was an incredible track. My whole life, my whole fucking life. Like, definitely one of the more iconic intros to any Death Grips project so far. And, even on the tracks where I wasn't as into the lyrics, or maybe there wasn't really a refrain that really stuck out to me, as far as the punk track, the punky psych track, or, the 2nd track on here, still really walked away very impressed with the instrumental. So, I might even just kind of categorize this as one of my favorite EPs of the year, just to kind of toward the end of the year, not have it be forgotten or anything like that. But I'm really loving what the band is doing here. Really colorful, really creative, intense as usual, pushing the boundary as usual, and makes me really excited to hear what they're going to be doing around the corner, because with the release of this Megamix, they have announced that they are working on a new album too, and it would be amazing to hear them continue to experiment with these sounds, but on a grander scale, greater presentation with whatever album they're going to be releasing in the hopefully near future. And those are my thoughts on this Megamix. Let me know what you thought of it down in the comments. Did you love it, hate it, why? And I will catch you guys in the next video. Forever.